Hello everyone, welcome to today's video, which is where we're going to be answering the question of how do you sell a buy-to-let portfolio. Now, when it comes to selling a portfolio of buy-to-lets, it's a little bit different than selling one individual property or even two or three. Typically, a portfolio would consist of multiple properties. That could be multiple flats, for example, in the same building. It could be multiple houses spread across maybe a similar area, so in the same town or city, or it could even be a whole diverse range of properties in a portfolio that are spread geographically, spread across price ranges, and spread across tenant profiles as well. So it's quite a complex case sometimes looking to try and sell a portfolio of properties, because it's about trying to find who the right buyer might be and what route is the right kind of way to go through that process. And then also all of the nuances that need to be considered when it comes to selling a portfolio compared to just one individual unit. So we'll look at all of those in today's video. So first up, the how, and that's very simple. It breaks down into one of two options, really. If you have a portfolio, you could opt to sell the whole portfolio. So that's giving all of the properties maybe to one source, whether that's an agent or an auction, and we'll touch on those different methods later on in the video as well. Or the second option is to sell individual properties and effectively sell them off at different times. Sometimes is the best route, so that you're not swamping the market. If you've got a large portfolio in a given area, for example, you may not want to put all of the properties on the market at the same time, as it might unfortunately devalue the whole of the portfolio, because you've got multiple properties hitting the market at the same time, and you may not have multiple buyers. So you could be flooding it with the supply side, and you might not yet have the demand side. So there are nuances to consider, but fundamentally it breaks down into one of those two options. Do you want to sell off the individual units, or do you want to sell off the portfolio and get them all done in one hit? The next thing to consider is the who. So who are your likely buyers? Who are you looking to sell that portfolio of properties to, whether you sell a whole lot or individuals, as we discussed? Would you prefer to sell it to maybe your existing tenants if your tenants are looking to purchase the property? And sometimes that can be the case. They might not have even expressed an interest yet, but it can be sometimes worthwhile having that conversation at least with them. However, when you've got multiple tenants, multiple properties, that can be quite a complex and in-depth process, because some tenants might want to, some tenants might not. You might not want to spook the tenants just yet and let them know that you're thinking of kind of selling. So that's only an option in very unique circumstances, we tend to find. Another option could be selling the properties as individuals to homeowners. So if you have tenants in the properties at the moment, that would unfortunately mean giving notice to those tenants on their tenancy so that the property is vacant, which is what a homeowner is going to need to buy it. Now, for sure, that gives you ultimate options, let's say, when it comes to selling to an open market, but it does limit you in lots of ways. For a start, it might not be preferable, both for yourself and also the tenants. Second, you would also have void periods. So during the period of time when maybe you do give notice, a tenant moves out, and then you're selling those properties, it's not ideal because you have no rental income and you will have holding costs on those properties as well. So although homeowners is one route to sell properties to when you have a buy-to-let portfolio, very often it can be a non-preferred choice, let's say. The other options that you have would be selling off, as we said, the individual units, maybe to individual investors. So you might have landlords in a local area that are really keen on the property types that you have, and you can choose and opt to sell those off as individual units. And there's a distinction that we find between sort of landlords and investors. If you're selling to a landlord, they might have a very specific use case of what they're looking for with their properties. Maybe they cover a particular postcode or even streets in an area. Or they might have just an interest in buying one property currently, whereas an investor tends to have more of a wide range of criteria. So they may be more open to multiple properties, and they may consider multiple areas as well, as long as it fits their criteria. So if you are selling off individual units to an investor or landlord, we'd probably say to look at maybe the investor market. So investors that are looking at multiple purchases over a period of time, maybe even if you're not looking at selling the whole portfolio to them today, because they may be a little bit more active, a little bit wider on their criteria, and hopefully your properties in your portfolio would be a fit for them. There are other options as well. You could look to sell those properties to developers. So if you maybe have properties in your portfolio that need some work doing to it, have the potential to maybe add some value. Maybe it could be a 2-bedroom property that can be converted to a 3-bedroom. You just haven't yet gone through that process or don't have the funds or the resources to look to develop those properties, but it could be a perfect opportunity for another investor or developer to do that. Likewise, if maybe they're in a really good location and adding extensions or converting houses into apartments, any value add potential opportunity that your existing properties have in your portfolio is well worth assessing, because it could increase the potential of buyers and it could also increase the potential value for yourself as well. So it's worth looking at your existing stock within your portfolio and seeing what the options are to maybe add some value and seeing if that would then be a good fit for a developer to purchase. So now maybe you've made a decision in terms of the house. You might be looking to sell to investors as a whole portfolio, or you may be looking at selling off individual units. You may have also considered the what. So what are you going to be looking for in your perfect buyer, customer? Let's say that's a homeowner, a tenant, a developer, an investor, like we've spoken on previously. Now it's important to look at really the next phase of that, in what process you can sell those properties via. Are you looking at selling them via an estate agent? So a local high street estate agent, for example. Now that can be great if you're selling off individual units, because they'll have typically an active buyer pool. They will usually have lots of local market experience and can typically find a very good purchaser for those individual properties. That becomes problematic at scale though. As we said, if you have multiple properties in a given area, then sometimes that can be complex. If you're looking at selling them all, you don't want to flood the market, and going with a high street agent typically does that. Also, if you're going with a high street agent, it usually rules out the potential to sell them as a portfolio, because very often high street estate agents focus on the homeowner market. So a lot of their buyers would be homeowner focused, looking for empty properties, vacant properties, and that might not fit the portfolio sale plan that you had in mind. Second option could be auctions. So selling properties via an auction is very common. There's lots of options there from an auction market point of view, but again, they tend to be individual transactions. You tend to sell them off as individual units. You can still sell them off all at the same time, and you still run into the difficulty though if they are all in the same location. And typically we'd suggest that you maybe stagger those sales. And if you do have a portfolio within a specific geographic region. If they're spread geographically though, and an auction route is something you would consider, it's well worth potentially looking at that. Third option is a sell house fast model. So you might have come across online or even local in your area, sort of home buyers, cash buyers, fast sale type companies that will usually give you an offer, typically below market value, to purchase your property fast. And they would usually look at portfolios as well. So not just the individual unit, but buying multiple properties off you in one go. And there is a real downside to that though, in terms of the spend and the market value of what they're willing to pay, and could be significantly below your expectations. So it's well worth reaching out to companies that you trust, understanding how they operate, understanding what sort of price ranges they pay, and then you can get a feel as to whether that route's potentially a fit for you. Now there is another option, which is selling via an investment focused agent, which you may not yet have considered, but that could be a really good route for you if you're looking to sell either individual properties or multiple properties in your portfolio, but as tenanted properties. So no need to give notice to the existing tenants. That's favorable for both yourself as investors and also your tenants. It gives them the continuance of their home. There's no downsides in terms of delays with void periods or anything like that. And you have an active tenant obviously paying rent while you own that property until the sale. And then the new incoming buyer would also have an active tenant ongoing. So it's beneficial. It's a win for everybody. It's a win for yourself as an investor, the incoming purchaser as an investor as well, and then also the existing tenants. And that can be a really good route. So if you are looking at that, we would love to help you within that process. Please do reach out. We do have a solution that helps investors sell portfolios as well as individual properties. And it can be a very quick purchase as well. So there's lots of solutions there, and it's well worth a chat. So hopefully that video has helped to give you some context as what the options could be when you're looking at selling a buy-to-let portfolio. And I fully appreciate that typically that process can be complex, but there are solutions for you. Look forward to catching up with you in the next video. All the best.